We need to turn on the microphones.
Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, could you please take roll for the regular housing meeting?
Commissioner Beard,
Here.
Commissioner Beckles,
Here.
Commissioner Dalton,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Here.
Vice Chair Broadwater,
Here.
Chair Wynn.
Here. Do we have any oral communications? No. Okay, hearing none, we'll now go to the consent items.
Madam Chair, you have two items, a status report and the minutes from the last meeting. It's recommended that these be acted on simultaneously.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Call for the vote.
No, wrong thing. I put that in there.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a public hearing.
Yes, Madam Chair, you have the proposed budget for fiscal year 2011-12 for the Housing Authority, and Danny Hune is here to give a staff report on this item.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The Section 8 Housing Assistance Program is federally funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development to assist very low-income families, seniors, and disabled persons in payment of rent on privately owned rental units. The Garden Grove Housing Authority subsidized over 2,300 families, and we administered an additional 250 families from incoming portability. Incoming portability are participants from housing authorities in other jurisdictions who moved into Garden Grove. An administrative fee is paid to the Garden Grove Housing Authority for administering these families. We also administer the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. This program is for our current Section 8 participants and is designed to encourage participants to a career development. All Section 8 rental units are inspected before admission and annually to ensure they are safe, decent, and sanitary. Each year, the Housing Authority staff inspects approximately 4,000 units. Last year, the Housing Authority opened for a waiting list and received over 17,000 applications. The majority are Garden Grove residents. Many are elderly and disabled, and approximately 500 applicants are U.S. veterans. It is our goal to start meeting with applicants on this new waiting list later this year. The first to be assisted from the list will be Garden Grove residents with U.S. veteran status. That concludes my report. I will turn over to Mr. Okereke for additional information.
All right, thanks, Danny. I will talk about the budget. The budget as proposed is a balanced budget, and will provide the necessary funding for all the Section 8 rental subsidies. And as Danny pointed out, there's 2,337 low-income families in the city that the housing department caters to. The budget also provides, again, for the continuation of the Family Sufficiency Program, which guides the housing clients towards economic sufficiency. For the fiscal year 2011-12 proposed budget, it is estimated that the Housing Authority will receive approximately $31.3 million. And out of that $31.3 million, 31.3 in total, this amount includes approximately $3 million of housing assistance payment portability. Those are the transfer in from other jurisdictions. Approximately $31 million is being appropriated for the voucher program, and that includes the direct assistance payments and also the direct admin charges. Another $91,000 funds the Family Sufficiency Program, and the $170,000 will be applied towards direct support and other general administration costs. The budget, as I said, is balanced, and this concludes the Housing Authority budget presentation. I can answer any questions you have.
Does that mean that the budget for this year is about $5 million more than last fiscal budget?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good news. Any other questions, members? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we accept this budget.
I'm sorry, we need to open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, it might help, huh?
The public hearing is open for any comments. Okay. Hearing none. We now close the public hearing. Mr. Broadwater made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There's no items for consideration. Any matters from commissioners and directors? Okay, hearing none. We'll now call for the adjournment of the Housing Authority, and the next meeting will be July 26th at 6:30 in the council's chamber.
Actually, it'll be August 23rd. We're not having a meeting on July 26th.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager.
Sit.
Say that.
That one's just so I put it on play.
It's the most stressful part of the night.
Okay, I'd like to call the Garden Grove City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Beard.
Here.
Councilmember Broadwater.
Here.
Councilmember Wynn. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Jones.
Here.
Mayor Dalton.
Here. We'll have the invocation by Kingsley Okereke and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Jones.
Please stand, let's pray. Dear Lord, we ask for your blessing over this meeting. And as we consider the issues before us tonight, we ask that you give us wisdom to not merely to know what is right, but also the courage to do that which is right. Amen.
Please face our great flag and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have no presentation, so we'll go right to oral communications for the council, the agency, the Public Financing Authority, and the Sanitary District. Peggy Bergen.
My name is Peggy Bergen, and I am now a 33-year resident, and I have absolutely no issues with the city today. Woo! Anyways, but my main reason here is to apologize to Matt. I jumped the gun when I saw basically his name and never really assuming that Matt had a son old enough to work for the city, work with the city, however that goes. So I really, truly do apologize. It wasn't quite your standard of statement anyways, but kind of when you see red, you're not too picky. But I am very sorry, Matt. I should not have jumped the gun. Now, my second issue is, my name tag. I went to the public transit meeting they had this evening. But I spent last week in Washington, D.C., so the weather here today is just a picnic. It's wonderful. But I was there with the mesothelioma group, like I have been going for the last 4 years. and that is basically the disease that killed my husband. So I like to come back and report on what's being done in that area, because it is something that does affect a lot of our citizens in the city, because a lot of our citizens work in the building trades, the oil trades, and all of those types of jobs where they still come in contact daily with asbestos, which does cause mesothelioma. And it is a frightful disease of the linings of your entire body inside. You don't see it until you might have had it somewhere from 5 to 50 years. And when you get it, your average life expectancy is from 4 to 18 months. And in that, if you do not get to see a specialist, and there are very, very few of those, your chances really go downhill very quickly, because it's a very aggressive disease once the first symptom comes up, and it's a very highly undertreated, under-researched, and therefore, when you get the death sentence of you have mesothelioma, the majority of the people do die anywhere within 5 days to 18 months. So it's not very, it doesn't happen to a lot of people, you know, but then a lot of people that have sudden acute heart attacks and are buried with that as their diagnosis do have some form of this disease, if not mesothelioma from asbestos, asbestosis. It does not show up because they need to do an X-ray will not show it up. You have to go to either the CAT or the PET scans minimally, and most of the time doctors won't recommend that unless you have an overt symptom for a very long time. So you will be underdiagnosed, therefore you will have no treatment, and therefore you will probably die pretty rapidly. It's basically, we went to Washington as a group to ask our congressmen and representatives to funnel a stream of money from the Congress designations of where funding will go for this year to specific mesothelioma research. There's absolutely no early warning test that you can give somebody that works with this disease. You just have to wait until one of the big symptoms come up, and hopefully you will be near enough to a doctor that they can actually give you treatment to, if not cure it, to make it you feel somewhat better until you pass away from it. So that's where I spent the last week in Washington, D.C. My one son was lucky enough to come with me this time, and so he spent the time looking at monuments, being very impressed. That is definitely a city that if you have the opportunity to take children in their youth and high school ages, please take them. It makes you feel very patriotic, and you definitely do want to become involved in your community and your government when you see what a long-standing history we have. And if you ever get into the American History Museum, be prepared to not come out the same day. You never come out of there. It's just wonderful. Thank you very much, and don't forget, mesothelioma kills, and it's caused by asbestos. Read your products. If there's asbestos in it, if you're having home repairs done, please, please check that any wallboard that's being put in does not come from China, because they have little cute sayings on the side, acceptable amounts of asbestos are in this product. There is no acceptable amount. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close oral communications at this time, and we'll go to written communications. 3A.
Mr. Mayor, you have a written communication from the Vietnam War Museum of America Foundation requesting city assistance in helping them establish a fundraising fund. There are monies within the cultural arts fund that the city has, and those monies could be made available should the council wish to honor this request.
Okay, I think that I think it's a worthy cause, and I think the amount, I believe, is $20,000,
That's correct.
and I think that it should be used for that, and so I'd move that.
Council, am I okay with this subject?
Are you,
I'm in the foundation.
yes, you don't have a financial interest, as I understand it, because of your work with the foundation, therefore there's no conflict of interest that would prohibit you from voting on this.
Okay, thank you.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
3B, written communications.
Mr. Mayor, your second written communication is a request by the Korean Festival Foundation of Orange County. They're requesting that they be permitted to move their Korean Festival event to the Village Green for the weekend of October 14th, 15th, and 16th. And they've attached a letter explaining the events and what they intend to do for the festival.
Okay, is there a conflict with any scheduled events? And/or is there the ability to move with little disruption?
Yeah. We do have 2 events scheduled at that park on that weekend, but both can be relocated during that weekend.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, they're having carnival rides,
Yes.
and their normal Korean festival does not have it. And if they get to move here, they will have that opportunity.
Correct. They're looking to expand that carnival
Okay.
from what it is now.
All right. I move to approve.
Okay, second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, I'll recess the council and we'll go to the agency.
At this time, we all open up the agency. Could you please call roll?
Member Beard?
Here.
Member Dalton?
Here.
Member Jones?
Here.
Vice Chair Wynne?
Here.
Chair Broadwater?
Here. Okay, we've had public input, and we have had no closed sessions. We will this later on this evening. Do we have for the agency tonight?
Closed session?
Yes.
I think it's just the city council.
Okay. Consent items.
Just your minutes, Mr. Chair.
Entertain a motion.
So move.
Call. I need a second.
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 Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, let's go to public hearings.
Mr. Chair, your first public hearing is to consider the proposed agency budget for fiscal year 2011-12, and Finance Director Kingsley Okereke is here to present this item. Are you going first?
Can we get that door shut there? That noise just really flows back here.
Jim Delalonga will introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Fatal. Good evening, Chair Broadwater and members of the agency board. The item before you this evening is the agency budget for fiscal year 2011-12. The budget contains a wide breadth of projects that reflect the agency's vision of enhancing the economic viability of the city while providing diverse community services and an improved quality of life for Garden Grove residents. Trying to get the PowerPoint going here for you, everybody. The proposed agency budget also includes administrative appropriations paid out of the Housing Set-Aside Fund, which benefit the agency and the project areas. This will require separate approval. Now, staying consistent with the city plan in the upcoming year, the agency will focus on a variety of programs and projects. First, the agency will begin to implement the Site C agreement with Land and Design for the construction of 3 hotels, convention center, and restaurants at the northwest corner of Harbor Boulevard and Twin Tree Lane. Second, the agency will continue to implement the agreement for the Great Wolf Resort and Water Park hotel development located on the west side of Harbor Boulevard, just south of Lamson Avenue. Third, the agency will continue to implement the agreement with New Age Garden LLC for the medium to high-density commercial and residential development located at the Brookhurst Triangle at Brookhurst Street and Garden Grove Boulevard. The agency's strategy is to position the city for development in the current economic climate so that it will be ready to move forward as the economy and financing outlook improve. As a result of this advanced planning, the city will reap the rewards in the future. On a different front, the business retention team is committed to working with our business community in the form of business visitations, workshops, and training seminars. These will continue in 2011-12. Recognition programs such as the Business Spotlight, Business Beautification Awards, and Garden Grove Salutes also serve as ways in which local businesses are honored and highlighted for their commitment to excellence and the community. The total agency budget for fiscal year 2011-12 is $38 million, which is slightly less than last year's budget of $38.4 million. This includes the Housing Set-Aside Fund, the Winna Clinton Redevelopment Fund, and the Community Project Redevelopment Fund. The projected operating revenues in the community project area total just over $20 million. That amount includes revenues from the anticipated sale of the former Fandango restaurant property adjacent to the Hyatt Hotel on Chapman Avenue. This revenue will enable the agency to meet its financial obligations, including loan payments, tax rebates, and pass-through payments, while maintaining a proactive stance on the pre-planning and implementation of current projects. The city continues to realize a significant amount of revenue from the transient occupancy taxes collected by the hotels along the Harbor Corridor. Over the past decade, the agency has provided assistance payments to 9 of these hotels. 6 of these assistance payments have ended their cycle. Only the Hyatt Regency, Residence Inn, and Sheraton payments remain. It should be noted that this proposed budget does not contemplate the ramifications of the many proposals and bills at the state level that may eliminate redevelopment or require large payments for the agency to continue to operate. Preliminary estimates from the California Redevelopment Association indicate that for one of the bills, the payment for Garden Grove could be as high as $8.3 million. Depending on what happens at the state level, agency staff may have to return to the agency for consideration of items to address the changes. Staff recommends that the agency approve and adopt the 2011-12 agency budget and resolution, as well as the resolution for certain agency-funded administrative appropriations. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available to answer questions.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Does anybody like to speak from the audience on this issue? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor? Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Let's go to 5B.
Mr. Chair, 5B is a joint public hearing with the City Council to consider a disposition and development agreement with Sweet Homes Development for a mixed-use project on Garden Grove Boulevard, just east of West Street. And if I can ask the mayor to reconvene the City Council for this item.
Let the record indicate that all members are present. We'll reconvene.
What is the joint item under the council?
The same item, the...
I understand the same item. What's the number?
Oh, item? 5F, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And Jim Dillalonga is here to give a staff report on this item.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Fatal. Good evening, Chair and Mayor and members of the agency and City Council. For you tonight is a proposed disposition and development agreement between the agency and Sweet Homes Development, LLC, for a mixed-use project on the north side of Garden Grove Boulevard between West Street and Dungan Street. The proposed project consists of 53 residential and 26 commercial condos in 2 7-story buildings. Parking for the development is provided by a 4-story parking structure with 1 level of subterranean parking. The developer owns the properties located at 12071 and 12081 Garden Grove Boulevard. The developer has made several attempts to acquire a third parcel shown here in yellow, but was unsuccessful. The developer has requested agency assistance with acquiring the parcel. The agreement before you contains the deal points for implementing the project. In summary, there are 3 major deal points: the acquisition of the third parcel, the disposition and condition of the third parcel once acquired, and potential tenant relocation. First, the developer will contribute $525,000 towards the acquisition of the third parcel. The fair market value of the property is determined by an appraisal. The agency will be responsible for attempting to acquire the parcel, and if unable to negotiate a purchase, the agency will schedule a hearing to consider whether the agency will acquire the parcel using eminent domain. This agreement does not obligate the agency to use eminent domain or to acquire the property. Additionally, the agency will be responsible for acquisition costs exceeding $525,000. Second, if acquired, the agency will convey the parcel to the developer in an as-is condition. Third, the agency will be responsible for the potential relocation of the tenant currently occupying the site. If the agency does not acquire the third-party parcel, the developer may opt out of the agreement. Additionally, it is important to note that this agreement formalizes the business points of the deal and does not approve the project itself. The developer still must go through the city's entitlement process prior to any construction. Upon completion, it is estimated that this project will generate new agency revenue of $300,000 to $400,000 annually. It will eliminate blight from the community near the International West Resort area, and it will provide additional housing opportunities in the community. A summary report has been provided which explains why the sale of this property will assist in the elimination of blight. Following the public hearing, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution consenting to the approval of the disposition and development agreement between the agency and Sweet Homes Development, LLC. Staff recommends that the agency adopt the resolution approving the disposition and development agreement with Sweet Homes, LLC for the development of the 1.77-acre site located on the north side of Garden Grove Boulevard between West Street and Dungan Street, and authorize the agency director to execute the agreement and any pertinent documents to effectuate the agreement. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available to answer questions. In addition, the developer is in the audience to support his project.
Any questions? Any questions for staff? Hearing none, at this time we'll go to the public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this issue?
Good evening. My name is Tim Carlisle. I'm an attorney, partner with the law firm Songstad and Randall, and our firm represents the owners of the third-party parcel. I provided a letter today, this afternoon, which I think has been provided to you and is in the record. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a great amount of time going through those points. It's just that we have been in discussions or in conversation with representatives of the city and the agency over a number of years, and we didn't learn about this hearing until Saturday. Received correspondence from Mr. Della Longa, which was appreciated, apprising us of it. And I understand technically from your counsel that the publication notice is all that's required, but it just seems odd that after having conversations over a period of time that this hearing would be set up without any notice to me or to the owners who are known to the city and to the agency. This is an important source of support, the third-party parcel, for a 96-year-old man who's a beneficiary of the trust, who's in a long-term care facility here in Orange County. With respect to the appraised value, I think it's interesting that appraisal was obtained without any information relative to the multi-year lease that's in place on the property. And it just seems strange that you could arrive at a value without taking into account the economics of the lease. And it just seems that this appears to be a foregone conclusion with respect to the eminent domain, and there are issues with respect to this transaction being for the benefit of a private developer, is predetermined, and that the action seems to be foreordained. So that will raise questions as we proceed in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Hearing none, at this time we will close the joint public.
I just want to ask a question. You kind of flew over what the project would entail so that we didn't really catch that. And once again, as far as I know, all those businesses are up and running because they're within about a mile of my house. So I haven't ever noticed that there's a lot of vacancy in those businesses. So they are already generating income of things that people in the community are using. I'm not quite sure about the kind of creative bookstore there, but therefore I'm kind of wondering how come this whole thing has been. Once again, it's kind of come right out here. No one's even initiated that there's something going on there, and but I just was more curious as to what exactly this entailed, being built on that, because that is already quite a built-out area. Congestion is already kind of severe at the corner that you're heading right into Harbor and Garden Grove Boulevard in the evenings. So, once again, we're running into the traffic issue that you somehow don't seem to notice. And I live on that side of town, so I do notice the traffic. Coming from here, coming over to City Hall for these meetings, it takes me 14 minutes. During the daytime, if I come over here at 1 o'clock for any reason, I can do it in about 6.5. That's just because of the traffic issue. And once again, we're having multi-story buildings with people that arrive and depart in cars. And use water also. I just finished paying my last water bill. It was quite a treat. Thank you very much.
Anybody else care to speak? Hearing none, at this time, we will close the public hearing. How do you want to handle this, Mr. Fertel? Should we let the city go first?
Yeah, we'll take a motion from the city council item.
Bill?
Okay. Any other questions for staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
It'd be item 5B1, the city council resolution.
I'll move the issue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion to receive 5 yes votes.
Okay, let's go to 5B2, agency, actually, it's the same thing with the agency. Entertain a motion.
Move it.
Approval.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Motion to receive 5 yes votes.
Okay, 5C, we have a joint public hearing.
Yes, that's correct. So we'll continue to have the council in session. This is a joint public hearing to consider first implementation agreement with respect to the first amended and restated disposition and development agreement regarding the Water Park Hotel, and Greg Blodgett is here to give a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fertel. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, tonight we have a joint public hearing to consider approval of the first implementation agreement for the first amended and restated disposition development agreement between the agency and Garden Grove MXD, Inc. The DDA provides for the developer to construct a 600-room water park hotel with 10,000 square foot of restaurant and also a parking structure. Due to circumstances with state budget and possible elimination of redevelopment agency, the developer's lender is requiring the agency issue bonds prior to the opening of the hotel. The original agreement provided for the agency issuing bonds at the opening of the hotel. The first implementation agreement has been amended to allow for the agency in its sole and absolute discretion to issue up to $42 million of bonds for this project. It is recommended that the agency take the following actions. First, conduct the joint public hearing, and then adopt the attached resolutions. Staff is here to answer questions. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, we will go to the public hearing. At this time, anybody would like to speak on this issue, it would be the moment. At this time, we will close the public hearing. Mr. Dalton, I think the first issue would be yours.
The council action you're talking about now.
Yes.
Yeah, 5C1 resolution.
Right, okay, I'll entertain a motion if there's
I'd like to move approval.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion to receive 5 yes votes.
Okay, let's go to 5C2, agency action. It's exactly the same.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion to receive 5 yes votes.
Items for consideration. Mr. Fertel.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is going to be a joint action. We already have the city council in session, we'll need to call then in session the Garden Grove Public Financing Authority as well, if we can do that.
And please call roll.
Member Beard?
Here.
Member Broadwater?
Here.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Wynn?
Here.
Chair Dalton?
Here.
This item is somewhat of a companion item to the matter you just heard regarding the Water Park Hotel and the necessity to issue bonds now rather than at the opening of the hotel. And so to help facilitate that, you have a few actions this evening, and Greg Blodgett is here to give a staff report on that item as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fertel. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency. The purpose of this report is to request the City Council, agency, and Public Financing Authority adopt resolutions authorizing the issuance and sale of 2011 subordinate tax allocation bonds of $105 million. The bond proceeds may be used for the following. First, to pay up to $32 million to pay off the agency's Union Bank loan, and two, to pay the covenant consideration for the Garden Grove MXD, Inc., which is the Water Park Hotel, of up to $47 million. And then third, to pay off the education revenue augmentation funds of $9.5 million and also $4.8 million, including interest. The 2011 tax allocation bonds shall be sold to the Garden Grove Public Financing Authority for concurrent resale to underwriter Stone Youngberg, LLC. It is recommended that the City Council adopt the resolution of the City Council approving the issuance of its 2011 bonds, and it's recommended the agency adopt the resolutions of the agency authorizing the issuance and sale not to exceed $105 million of 2011 subordinate tax allocation bonds, and adopt the resolution of Board of Directors of Garden Grove Public Financing Authority authorizing the purchase and sale of subordinate tax allocation bonds. That concludes my staff report.
Any questions for staff? Okay, so this is items for consideration, so can we handle 4A, 1, 2, and 3 in one motion, or we need separate for each?
Separate actions by each board.
Okay.
So the first one would be a city council action.
Okay,
When you're ready.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move approval.
I'll second that.
Have a motion, second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Would next be agency action?
Correct.
It is. Same thing. Anybody like to make a motion? I
Move
appreciate
approval.
it. We have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
I think it's the finance next.
Yeah, the Public Finance Authority.
Move approval.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Owner participation agreement, 6B.
6B, Mr. Chairman, it's a owner participation agreement with Garden Grove Volkswagen to consider financing the conversion of that facility from a Chrysler dealership to a Volkswagen dealership, and Greg Brown is here to give a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fertel. Chairman Broadwater, members of the agency, before you tonight is a request to adopt a resolution approving an owner participation agreement with Countywide Rambler Incorporated pertaining to the Volkswagen dealership located at 10800 Trask Avenue. In late 2001, a new Chrysler Jeep dealership opened on Trask Avenue between Euclid Street and Taft Street. Previously, it had been located on Garden Grove Boulevard for several decades. The site of the new dealership was assembled with agency assistance via a disposition and development agreement dated January 25, 2000. Countywide, Inc. then constructed the dealership as part of a corporate partnership. Around October of 2007, the Chrysler Jeep points were sold to Union Dodge, and on January 8, 2008, the agency approved a request to replace the Chrysler Jeep dealership with a Volkswagen dealership. Countywide was then required to convert the building to meet the standards required by Volkswagen Corporation. Over $1,400,000 was expended by Countywide to convert the dealership, with additional costs required to reorganize the corporation after the death of one of the principals in February of 2009. Countywide has requested financial assistance in the form of sales tax sharing in return for extending the existing operating covenant until 2023. In exchange for the extended operating covenant, the agency and Countywide will divide 50% of any sales tax generated from new auto sales, actually all auto sales, after the initial $75,000 in annual sales tax until the participant receives $700,000 or 10 years goes by, whichever comes first. While the DDA approved in 2000 will be terminated when the OPA is approved, certain provisions of the original DDA will remain in effect, including a property maintenance agreement, which requires countywide to maintain the private and public improvements, and it runs with the land. The new partnership is in the process of replacing the existing electronic reader board sign with a more modern sign. As the agency currently has the ability to advertise on the existing sign until October of this year, the partnership intends to honor the balance of that agreement and will consider allowing us to continue using some reasonable amount of time on the new sign when the current sign agreement expires. Based on the foregoing, staff recommends that the agency adopt the attached agency resolution approving an owner participation agreement between the agency and Countywide Rambler Incorporated. That it concludes my report. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Yes.
Please.
What's the estimate for how much the city would lose from the taxes each year?
It's hard to say. The last couple of years, of course, sales have been down quite a bit. They are averaging about 100,000. So the city would receive the first 75,000. Anything above that would be split 50-50. So if they increase sales to 200,000, then there's a difference of 125,000.
I got it.
So that's split 50-50.
Yeah, I understand. And my next question is, if they fail and they don't open the business anymore, then this term would go away. It doesn't carry on with the next dealer, right?
Right.
Yeah, I want to make sure that's the case.
Correct.
There is a provision for assistance to be repaid under certain conditions if they were to default on the agreement.
Okay.
So there could be some recovery potentially of funds.
All right. Thank you.
Actually, I would like to speak on this a bit, because the Volkswagen dealership, we're lucky to have it. I mean, really are, because the Chrysler dealership would have been gone, and that place would be closed down, and getting another dealership in this era would be very, very difficult. So, what's the guy's name that owns that? Speck, is that it?
Jim Speck.
Yeah, Speck. As much as I have wrestled with this Mr. Speck over the years, I do believe this has been a good move on his part and a good move for us.
I have one question. If he were to sell the dealership in the middle of this contract, what happens to that?
I believe as long as it continues to operate as a Volkswagen
As
dealership.
Volkswagen dealership, then it would be
passed on to the
the
new-
terms would be the same, okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any matters from agency members? Hearing none, they will adjourn until...
So we need a vote.
Oh, what
have
do you
a
want to vote for, huh? Call for the vote. Oh, let's have a motion.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
All right, we will adjourn until July 12th at 5:30 p.m.
August 23rd, right?
Okay, now I believe we can, I think we can adjourn public financing at this point.
That's correct.
Okay, I will do so then. Adjourn the
Are we
Public
going to come
Financing
back to
Authority.
it?
No, there's
we're
no
all done.
set.
They're all covered, okay.
Yeah. And then we go to council.
Sand District.
I'm sorry.
So you can
There's so many
recess
papers
the
up
council
there.
as well if you like.
You know what, I don't,
Could we take 5?
go ahead. If you promise to make it 5.
Here. Member Wynn?
Here.
Vice President Beard?
Here.
President Dalton?
Here. Okay, first the consent items.
You have 2 items, Mr. President. It's recommended that you act on these simultaneously.
Move the issues.
Second that.
Have a motion, and a second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, item 3, public hearing.
You have a public hearing to consider the proposed budget for the Sanitary District, and Kingsley Okereke will give the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Fattel. District Board President, board members, with this item, staff is requesting that the Sanitary District Board review the proposed budget and approve the attached resolutions adopting the annual budget of the Garden Grove Sanitary District for fiscal year 2011-12. A more detailed district's operational goals for next fiscal year are outlined in your packet, in the memo in your packet. A few of them are highlighted on this slide. The district staff are here and can explain or answer any questions you may have relative to these objectives outlined here. The district budget as proposed, which includes both sewer and solid waste funds, it's a balanced budget. For the sewer fund, the proposed budget provides the necessary funding to continue the planned sewer capital program that includes the capacity and structural deficiencies identified in the 2005 sewer study. Also, staff plans to continue the fats and oils and grease control education during the fiscal year. For solid waste, the solid waste program, the focus during the fiscal year will be to continue the AB 939 waste diversion efforts that will enable the city to stay within the required limits. And also demonstration of AB 939 good faith effort that calls for public education event with regards to various recycling strategies. Now, with respect to the sewer funds, we do have a balanced budget, and the budget as balanced consists of a beginning balance of approximately $625,000. Projected revenue from for the fiscal year totals about $10.2 million. Out of that, $3.8 million approximately will be applied towards operations and maintenance. Contractual services amounts to about $1.1 million. Debt service for the debt that has been issued to support the structural rehabilitation of the system will amount to about $1.46 million. And for the fiscal year, the program will engage in a total capital, including replacement and improvements, of approximately $4.4 million, with a balance of close to about $57,000 at the end of the fiscal year. For the solid waste, this is a new budget based on the revised agreement that was put in place last year. We have a beginning balance of $532,000. Projected revenue coming in, which includes some of the revenues some of the charges that are collected through the tax roll, total about $3 million. Uses of that money includes operations and maintenance of approximately $1 million. We are setting aside a total of $700,000 in reserves for both operations reserves and some reserves for whatever we have to do at the landfill. And then contractual services, which is essentially our payment to the service provider, totals about $1.7 million. And at the end of the year, we're projecting we'll have a balance in that fund of approximately $200,000. And that concludes the budget presentation for the sanitary district. And I can answer any questions along with staff that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this? Charles Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Sanitary Commission Board, several years ago, it was approved for a bond issue in the amount of $52 million to take care of improvements and upgrades to our sewer system. I'd like to know at this point how much has been issued in the name of those bonds and how much is remaining that we can still borrow on them.
Thank you. Okay, do we have that information available at this time?
Right. Mr. Mayor, we issued the first tranche of the bonds for totaling $18 million. And that $18 million has been used, most of it has been used towards the projects. We have delayed issuing the second tranche of the bonds because we have enough revenues coming in through normal revenue collections to continue to do the projects. We are looking at perhaps next year issuing the second tranche of the bonds. If we issue all of those bonds today, along with some of the water bonds, we will be tearing up the streets, a lot of the streets. And some of these things, district staff are telling me that they have to plan it out. And we're looking at issuing the bonds according to that project execution plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
That's it for the one single action, yes. Okay, anything from the board members? Okay, I'll adjourn this meeting. It'll be in August sometime for the next one. And we resume the council?
Yes.
Yeah, consent, yes, consent calendar. Do I can handle that with a single motion?
Yes.
Move the issue.
I have a
Second.
motion
Second.
and a second. Call for the vote.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor? Motion received, 5 yes
Okay,
votes.
thank you. Okay, public hearings.
Mr. Mayor, the public hearing is to consider several actions regarding the city's general fund budget. And although there's items 5A1 through 5A9, you will be able to make one motion to approve all of these. But certainly you can ask questions on any one of these activities. Kingsley Okariki is here to give a staff report on the budget items.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and citizens of Garden Grove. I do have a PowerPoint presentation for you tonight, but before I get into that presentation, I want to quickly run through what you have in your packet. 5A1 through, I think, A9, you have the base budget, which includes the city's operating budget for basic services, water cable services, grant services, capital improvement, mobile home parks, and special assessment funds. These are all contained in the resolution 5A1. 5A2 through 9 are all the related and enabling resolutions that you are being asked to approve tonight to effectively pass all of the city's fiscal year 2011-12 base budget. In your packet, you have staff memo and budget resolutions which details the proposed fiscal year capital and operations expenditures of the city and the projected revenues and other fund sources to pay for them. We have provided you with the budget detail breakdown also by department in the attachment with the PowerPoint presentation printout. This part of the PowerPoint presentation tonight focuses on the city basic services component of the budget. And again, this is the largest component of the city's budget. It is the city's general purpose fund, which is the principal operation fund of the city. And with that, I'm glad to say up front that we do have a balanced budget, especially in these very difficult and unsettling economic times. I will outline in the presentation how we got there and what's included in the budget. I'll also give you first a brief recap of what we are projecting as year-end balance for the fiscal year that is about to end in a few days. I will then get into the components of the proposed fiscal year 11-12 budget. With that, getting into the PowerPoint presentation, almost 3 years ago, we were hit with what has been termed as the Great Recession. And I guess it was quite a depression, but we got awfully close to the edge. It wasn't a depression, but we really got close to the edge. I have a picture here that kind of captures where we were approximately 3 years ago. But it says the good news is that we seem to have hit the bottom, and we hit that bottom sometime, I think, in 2009. And since then, we have been trying to climb our way out of that recession, and it's been a very slow climb, as the picture here depicts. The pre-recession level, which is approximately 2007-8, compared to where we are right now, we have quite a ways to go to get back to that level. But as you may recall, when the recession hit, we did put in a 3-year financial plan, 3-year financial strategy, and that strategy stands on 3 legs. One of which is to cut costs. We wanted to contain the budget and not allow the budget to grow beyond what it is, and in fact cut back on that. The other is to tap rainy day funds that we have accumulated over the years, and for rainy day, and we felt that rain was upon us beginning that 2008-9 fiscal year. And the third leg there is to continue to lay the foundation for revenue growth in the future when the economy does recover. Forgetting growth per se, our synopsis at the time, the analysis that we've made is that, yes, our revenues are very slow in recovering. We are also we're still contending with cost containment. We're trying to cut that budget and have that budget not grow in any significant way. And also the other challenge we have is with the cutback in budget and having to strike a balance between cutback and limited resources and the service level expectations out there. Again, the solutions that we have put in place and continues to hold on to includes that budget cuts, tapping savings and reserves, and in some cases, as we did in the current fiscal year, we did sell some land to help balance the budget, and we are continuing to sow the seeds for revenue growth, especially with the through the economic development in the Harbor Boulevard. Just a recap of 2010-11 fiscal year. When we adopted the budget for the current year, it was the year 2 of our 3-year financial plan. We, at the time, implemented 0 cost of living adjustment. We didn't allow anything to grow, including salaries for employees. We continued to defund positions, vacant positions we kept vacant, and that budget cut and reductions through defunding netted us approximately $7.82 million. We kept the hiring freeze in place. Only very essential or revenue-generating positions were approved to be hired. And we did implement early retirement, and that helped us save some money in the budget. And part of balancing the budget for the current fiscal year was the drawdown of $6 million from our reserves. And the asset conversion of $2.4 million also helped us to have a balanced budget in the current fiscal year. How have we been doing? So far, we have been on target. Our sales tax have recovered some, but not anywhere close to where we were pre-recession. Hotel tax is doing quite well. Gas tax has been stable, and property tax have been somewhat steady. But interest revenue, we've lost a lot of money, and interest is very low at this time. And I will show a more detailed slide of all of our revenues so you can see that picture more clearly. On the expenditure side, as I said, we are on target with the budget reductions. The hiring freeze is still in place, and there was also the 0 employee cost of living adjustments in that year. So far, we are projecting that we probably will save approximately $500,000 that we can carry over to next year, the budget that is under consideration tonight. Now, looking ahead, in preparing the fiscal year 11-12 proposed basic budget, we have the Great Recession. The economy is still not recovering very well. The recovery has been very slow. Unemployment is still high, and low consumer confidence is still what we're dealing with, and that is being reflected in the slow growth in sales tax. People are not buying as much as they did in the past. At the state level, there are some issues that we know, we are aware of them, but there's not much we can do at this time until some of the legislations that are in play, either they pass or they fail. And also, we are still waiting for the state to pass their budget. We don't know what impact it will have on us. If it does have any impact, we may have to come back here and update you on that and maybe revise certain things. There's also discussions about pension reform, and our pension cost is growing, and it did impact us, and we've also included some amount in this budget to accommodate that increase in pension payments. And the one thing that is topmost in everybody's mind tonight is the redevelopment agency reform or elimination legislations. And I understand the state legislature is deliberating at this time, and maybe something will happen tonight relative to redevelopment agency. We just don't know. We'll see what happens tomorrow. With respect to close to home, city issues, the things that we have felt is slowed and delayed development activities. And also, looking at our budget closely, we do have a structural deficit, and that structural deficit is continuing. The economy essentially have made that a little worse for us. With all that in mind, looking at our revenue picture, I wanted to highlight some of our revenues in this chart. The ones highlighted in yellow, if you look at sales tax, the first highlighted in yellow there, and you go to the first column of numbers, that's 2007-8 actual numbers. In 2007-8, we received, this is actual, $19.7 million in sales tax. It dropped, if you go to the middle, 2009-10, when we saw the biggest brunt, we took the biggest brunt of the recession. Sales tax dropped to about $14 million. And this year, we are projecting the second to the last column there that we'll probably realize close to $16.2 million. It's growing some, but it's not where it was in 2007. And for 2011-12, we are estimating close to $17 million in sales tax revenue. So that's good news in somewhat, especially in this environment. For property tax, as you can see, the second highlighted in yellow there, the general property tax, it has remained, relatively speaking, very stable. We didn't see, the growth that a lot of other jurisdictions, especially in the Inland Empire, saw during the runaway real estate values. And we're not seeing any significant drop-off either in property tax, which it's something that Garden Grove has going for it. It's a built-out city, it's relatively stable, and the property tax base doesn't change that much. Transient occupancy tax, highlighted again there in the middle, we are almost coming back to where we were in 2007-8. And that's really the best news in the revenue picture there. For 2011-12, our estimate is that we'll realize close to $10.1 million. So we are maybe $400,000 to $500,000 off where we were at the peak. But all indications are that we'll probably get back there next year. Interest revenue, that's the biggest drop-off in our revenue. As you can see there in the chart, in 2007-8, we realized almost $2.5 million. Today, in the current fiscal year, we are projecting about $500,000, and next year we think it will drop to about $400,000. That's a huge drop for us. And the last highlighted column there is just the land sales or asset conversions. In the very last column there for 2011-12, we have not factored in any asset sales to balance the budget. Again, for the fiscal year 2011-12, we are continuing the strategy of managed downsizing. We are keeping vacant positions open. We're defunding them, actually. And we're continuing the hiring freeze. And there's also some cutbacks in contractual and other expenditures. And right now we're deferring the major expenditures. Unless we absolutely need them or they are mandated, we are deferring them to a later date. The budget synopsis here for fiscal year 11-12. The key components of it is that all the reductions, deferrals, and defunding of positions we are projecting will net about $6.8 million. In this budget, as I pointed out before, over the past 2 years, we have insisted on zero cost of living adjustment, but in this particular budget, we've included a 2% COLA inflation adjustment, and we are also incorporating the increased PERS cost of approximately $1.8 million. And to balance the budget, we are drawing down from our reserves and other funds for a total of $9 million to help balance the budget. The projected year-end basic fund balance at the end of the fiscal year to 11-12 will be approximately $42,000, actually zero for all intents and purposes. And again, I point out that this is the third year of our 3-year financial plan. Once we adopt this budget, we have to go back and start looking at future years, which is 2012-13 and 13-14 and 14-15. When we started this 3-year financial plan 3 years ago, at the time our perception or our belief was that the recession will last at least a couple of years and by the third year we'll recover. That hasn't happened. And we have to go back to the drawing board and do another 3-year plan on how we're going to survive, if you will, over the next 3 years. As part of the positions that have been defunded or eliminated in this budget, there's 13 sworn police positions, 2 fire captains, 25 city staff positions, and 1 economic development position. We're cutting back about $530,000 in contractual and other expenditures. And all of that is the amount that nets us the $6.83 million in this slide. In terms of the details of the positions, this slide has all the positions that are being defunded in all the departments, community services, community development, fire department, police, public works, and economic development. These are the actual positions that we have defunded so far. And the defunded amount of $6.8 million, the makeup again is 6.298. It's all labor positions and 530 other contractual services and other cuts. For reserves, the components of the $9 million are, we're drawing down $4 million from our PERS reserves. And the PERS reserves are monies that we set aside many years ago when CalPERS told us we were superfunded, but we continue to set aside those funds. And they have come in very handy today to help balance the budget. Our contingency reserve that we started to build up a few years back, we're drawing $3 million out of that. And we're taking $1 million from the vehicle replacement fund, and we believe we can take that $1 million without jeopardizing our ability to replace police vehicles or fire engines when they wear out. And we're also going to take $1 million from Development Impact Fee Fund to help balance the budget for a total of $9 million. This chart is a summary of our budget, basically how we balance the budget. Starting from the column to the far right, the 500 there, that's 500,000 projected balance that we're carrying over from the current fiscal year. Our projected revenue for basic services, which includes general fund and other basic operations, amount to the $80.22 million that you see there, for a total resources of $80.7 million. Projected base budget, our base budget is about $95.7 million. And in the budget, we are adding supplemental operations. These are basically mandates, things that we have to do. of approximately $455,000. And also, the general fund is fronting $372,000 to support the street lighting program for a total base budget of $96.5 million. And out of that, we cut out the $6.8 million, which includes all the defunded positions, the forced lapse, and savings from the early retirements that we put in place last year. The revised expenditure budget amounts to $89.696 million. The structural deficit that we're balancing is the 8.969, and again, the use of reserves and other drawdowns that we're applying to that is about $9 million for, again, approximately $42,000 in change left. But this is a balanced budget, and we believe that we can execute this budget as proposed over the next for the next fiscal year. Different looks at the budget by department. Again, this is not anything out of unusual. This is typical of all cities. Public safety, it's in total, it's approximately about 71%. Public works, there 14.6%. Community services, 4.6%. Those top four are the things that the citizens want: public safety and quality of life. The other support functions, finance 2.2%, city manager's office 1.3%, and the other support functions of the city. And another look at that is by expenditure object. Labor accounts for 67 million of that, about 75%. Contractual services 12%, and other commodities 2.4%, and debt service and other payments approximately 10%. And in summary, again, this is a service reduction budget. It does include the 2% cost of living adjustment for inflation. We are cutting back through defunding approximately $6.8 million, and we're drawing down approximately $9 million to help balance the budget, and the balance is, again, about $42 less than $50,000, and this is the third year of our 3-year financial plan. Outlook for the city revenues. The economic recovery is still very elusive. We don't know where things are going. We know that the economy is recovering, but is recovering very slow. And most of our city revenues are dependent on the economy. Some recoveries in sales tax, property tax, and hotel tax. Other revenues are flat, and interest possibly weakening. And again, as part of the strategy, we're continuing to sow seeds for revenue growth through aggressive redevelopment efforts. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have on the budget.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'd like to know, the sales tax and the budget they're looking at right now in the state of California is going to come down 1%. Is that going to have any effect on us?
That probably will have an effect on us. But the projection is that with the increase in gas prices, which is a big chunk of where we drive our sales tax in the city, that some of that will be offset with that. But I think it will have some impact, and we will continue to monitor that very closely over the months.
Okay, and our interest, I'm sure that interest rates have been down for several years, but spending down our reserves, is that what's causing the interest to reduce?
No, that's not what's causing it. The interest rates have gone significantly down. If you look at our portfolio, we were earning close to maybe 3.8, almost 4% a few years back. Today, at the end of the fiscal year, we probably will be earning 0.6% on our portfolio. So I think the biggest impact is the rate. And we cannot invest in any high-yield investments. We can only invest in treasuries and government-backed securities, and those are the rates, and those are very low right now.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, then I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move we pass this budget.
A second that.
Have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Do we need to go the...
No, all nine. One motion for all nine.
Councilmember Broadwater, it didn't affect your...
Well, I'm dubious.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, 5B.
Mayor, 5B is considering the assessment report for the Garden Grove Tourism District. And Mr. Blodgett is here to give a staff report, but I think the clerk needs to read something into the, is it before the item?
It's after the public hearing.
Oh, after the public hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Mr. Mayor, council members, the purpose of this report is to adopt a resolution confirming the annual report of Garden Grove Tourist Improvement District and levying assessments for 2011-2012. On October 26, 2010, the council adopted the GGTID, Tourist Improvement District. The purpose of the district is to fund revenue to advertise and marketing efforts designed to increase overnight stays in the Garden Grove Tourist Improvement District, and also to construct and maintain improvements in the Garden Grove Tourist Improvement District and programs that promote and encourage tourism within that district. The Garden Grove Tourist Improvement District includes hotels along harbor from north city boundary to Garden Grove Boulevard and has 2 distinct tiers. The first tier has a 2.5% of the gross revenue per occupied room charged by the visitor, known as Tier 1, and then Tier 2 has a 0.5% assessment. The Tier 2 hotels are south of Lamson Avenue along Harbor Boulevard. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolution of the City Council confirming the annual report of the GG Tourist Improvement District for fiscal year 2011-2012 and levying the assessment for fiscal year 2011-2012 for Garden Grove Tourist Improvement District. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Before we go to the motion, Mr. Mayor, we need to determine on the record that there's been no majority protest with regard to the proposed assessment, and I would ask the city clerk to confirm that.
Mr. Mayor and council members, to state for the record, there have been no protests received for the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District assessment. Therefore, a majority protest has not been received.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the issue.
Second.
I have motion second. Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
5C.
Mr. Mayor, 5C is to consider street vacation along Harbor Boulevard in conjunction with the Water Park Hotel, and Susan Emery is here to give a staff report.
Mr. Mayor, prior to that, I have to abstain from this, recuse myself. I voted on this on the Planning Commission. 5C1, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. In January of this year, the city approved the final entitlements for the development of the Water Park Hotel facility on property which will be located on the west side of Harbor Boulevard, north of Garden Grove Boulevard, and south of Lamson. The project includes the incorporation of the Harbor Boulevard Service Road into the project. On April 7th, the Planning Commission determined that the proposed vacation of the Harbor Boulevard Service Road conformed with the city's adopted general plan. On May 24th, the Planning Commission adopted a resolution of intention to set June 28th, tonight, as the date and time for the public hearing regarding the street vacation. The service road only provides pedestrian and vehicular access to the properties that are encompassed within the Water Park Hotel project boundaries. No other properties gain access to the subject service road. After vacation of the service road, both pedestrian and vehicular access to the proposed Water Park Hotel facility and the surrounding area will remain and therefore will not impact existing circulation in the area. Furthermore, the street vacation is in keeping with the spirit and intent of the Garden Grove General Plan. Staff recommends that the City Council conduct a public hearing on vacating the Harbor Boulevard Service Road located on the west side of Harbor Boulevard, north of Garden Grove Boulevard, and south of Lamson Avenue, and adopt a resolution that reads as follows. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving street vacation SV 119-11 and ordering the vacation and abandonment of the Harbor Boulevard Service Road located on the west side of Harbor Boulevard, north of Garden Grove Boulevard, and south of Lamson Avenue. And I'm happy to answer
Thank you.
questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion, second, call for the vote. Okay,
Councilmember Broadwater, your vote then. Motion received, 4 yes votes.
okay, 5D.
Mr. Mayor, 5D is to consider a public hearing on a protest of the spring 2011 weed abatement notices, and Sabrina Soltis is here to give a staff report on this item.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, twice a year, the Fire Department initiates the city's weed abatement program, and there are 3 steps that include the City Council's declaration of a public nuisance, a public hearing after the notice to clear lots are sent to the property owners, and the purpose of tonight, a public hearing after the lots are cleared and invoices are unpaid by property owners. It is recommended that council receive testimony from members of the public and take appropriate action. Those actions would be uphold any objections and direct staff as to how the council would like to respond to these objections, overrule the objections and direct staff to proceed with the weed abatement, and if there are no objections, direct staff to proceed with the weed abatement process.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Mark, I'm not sure, KAH? Okay.
Mayor, council members, good evening. While they're passing this out, basically, I live on the adjacent property of the people that own the Brookers lot, and I told, they're really good on my rent, so I said, I'll take care of your weeds this year. So when it came about, I had the notice, I had a couple estimates there around $400 to $600, and I'm like, I'm just going to do it myself. So I hit it with the weed whackers and round out and stuff, and then I needed this attachment on my weed eater to knock them all down, and I was waiting for that to come in the mail, missed the deadline, which wasn't even communicated. So at any rate, in the morning, I saw the guys out there and asked them how long they'd been there. They said about 2.5 hours. And I said, okay. And then we got the invoice and was like, oh, this is pretty brutal. So I thought I would just, technically, as far as the rates go, they did make one error that would probably save us a couple $100, but I just wanted to bring to your attention on the first page, they have the disc rate, which fortunately we missed out on the 200 an acre deal and went over to the tractor mowing or hand rotary mowing at $2,500 an acre plus the hand cutting at $6,000 an acre. They kind of combined that on us to come with the total of $2,700 plus the city assessment came up to $3,500 for something I was trying to do myself. So I don't know if you could have have it reviewed, or if there's anything you can do. I kind of think following your budget, I'm probably at a disadvantage already. But that's pretty much.
Let me ask you a question. Do you own the property, or you're doing this you're adjacent to the property?
Yeah,
and you're doing it for the owner?
Yeah, the piece of property, they own the flower side all the way to Brookhurst, and I've lived on the flower side for 20 years.
You've been there 20 years? How long has that lot been there?
Probably since the 30s, I would imagine.
So it's probably whenever it's been disked or cut or whatever, it's done pretty much the same time annually.
Well, yeah, what happens is the owners have their own crew. It's a pretty large company that owns it, and, I trying to help out. I just kind of messed it up for them by this happening, but usually they would just send their crew out, but, I'm unemployed right now, so I'm like, well, I'll go out and take care of it just kind of to show a little thank you for not raising my rent for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it ended up turning into something like this here, so.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. You need a,
Thanks. Since the invoice was paid, it doesn't affect the action that you're going to take tonight. If you'd like staff to look into the matter more and provide a response, then you can direct us.
well, let me
to do
ask
so.
you this. Is this, whatever figures are here, is that what the city had to pay?
I'd like to talk about that. I mean,
No, let me get an answer, please.
okay.
I don't have
Is that what it actually cost for us to have people go out there and cut it, or whoever is directed?
Yes, the prices that are listed are the prices that the city contractor charges us, and there's there's an administrative fee that we add to it for the city staff time. But the prices listed specifically, this many cents for disking, this many cents for hand cutting, those are exactly what the city contractor
Okay.
charges us.
Okay, Mr. Broadwater.
Well, it was my understanding that we raised those prices considerably to keep people to keep people to do their own yards. I mean, to clean it up. Doesn't have much work with the Union Pacific Railroad, but I do believe that. I mean, in the past, we've been told that those rates are doubled and tripled to charge them a lot of money so that they will actually continue to clean up their own properties. So I'm surprised to hear that we're paying that much for it.
Well, hopefully we get reimbursed or we get recompense from the property owner who's in charge of it if they fail to meet the deadline.
If they don't pay this, do we put it on the property tax?
Yes, sir, that's what tonight's resolution is about.
But I think it's confusing because this gentleman's not, from what I understand, is not one that didn't pay. So the action tonight does not include his parcel. It's almost like he's bringing it to your attention to see if
After the
Well,
fact.
actually, I'm not even sure then he really has a standing in it, does he, if it's not his property and he's not acting on behalf of the owner? Well, he may or may not be acting on behalf of the owner.
Well, again, there's two things. As far as I know, there are no protests relative to what's before you, so you can take the action on that. Separately, if you feel that staff can investigate his situation separate from this, you can direct us to do so.
I'd like to make a motion that we take the action on the item tonight, vote on it, and also recommend that staff look into the matter and try to look into Mr. Kalen concern separately from the item tonight.
I mean, I don't know if we'll have a resolution for him, but I think
Well, the resolution may be you missed the deadline.
it may be.
Yeah. I mean, because realistically, it's not beneficial for the city to have to pay a certain amount because someone else didn't do it on time and then cut it in half for them. I mean, these are hard costs that we have. So I don't know if I were to make a motion or not to uphold, you can check with the legal counsel to see if...
Why don't we make two motions? Go ahead and get this cleaned up, and then we'll take a look at it. Because they're not mixed together anyway, so why mix the motions together?
Right.
Well, I'm making a motion to let it stand, if that's, or how it should be worded, to say, this is what it cost us, this is what you have to reimburse or pay the city.
We only have to vote on it tonight. Just approve the weed abatement. Is that right, Mr. Manager?
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that
Approve the
is-
weed, yeah.
If we do that, make a
Okay.
motion to
Yes.
adopt the resolution as presented.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Second, I don't know if they don't wish to direct us to do anything.
Yeah, you don't need to make a motion to get direction.
That's true.
So,
Mr. Beard.
I have a question related to what Councilmember Broadwater said. The rates, any feedback or explanation on the rates? You seem to think they're higher than they it should be.
Well, I think they're extremely high if we're paying them.
Well,
I mean, $3,000 for mowing process on one piece of property? Somebody is having a good time at their expense, and I don't mind them paying for it because they should be taking care of their property. But if there's going to be a subsidy on it, or not a subsidy, but an additional charge, I want the city to make that money. So I would like to talk about, are we going to put this out to bid or see how it happens? Is it put out to bid?
Was it original? Apparently, originally it was put out to bid. It's been several years that we've had the same contractor.
So as they investigate this case, can we also ask them to look at the rates?
Sure.
And the process?
Well, I don't know, if you want, why don't you agendize for the next council meeting, then we can bring up and find out the information that we need as far as if this is the hard costs, and it may be something we want to go out on RFP, I don't know.
Bring it back.
Okay, 5E. Yeah, I think that's where we are.
Yes, this has to do with protest hearing on the Main Street Assessment District Number 1, and Ann Eifert is here to give a staff report on this item.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, you have before you the final step in the process to establish the annual assessment for the Main Street Assessment District Number 1. On May 24, 2011, City Council approved the engineer's report and set the protest hearing date for today, June 28th. The assessments remain unchanged from the current year, and maintenance activities will also remain the same. In accordance with the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972, the remaining action for City Council is to hold the protest hearing and adopt the resolution confirming the assessments for the Main Street Assessment District Number 1 for fiscal year 11-12. Staff recommends that the City Council open public hearing and take public comment, adopt the attached resolution confirming the proceedings and assessments against the individual parcels and ordering the proposed maintenance to be completed in accordance with the engineer's report, and to direct the city clerk to file and record the assessments with the county auditor for collection of the assessment on the tax roll. This concludes my staff report, and staff is available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
No questions. Move to approve.
Well, we have
to have a public hearing.
Public hearing. Okay, I'll open a public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have motion second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
See, are we at 5G?
We did 5F, we did 5G,
We're at 7A.
so now we go
All
to...
right, 7A.
7A, it's my understanding that this item has been pulled and will probably go back out to bid. That brings you to 7B, you've already done.
7C.
7C, the paramedic tax override rate for the new year, and Kingsley Okuriki is here to give you a staff report.
And this is only an item for consideration, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's not a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Fattel. Mr. Mayor, council members. The California Revenue and Taxation Code provides for local agencies to levy an additional ad valorem tax rate to property to fund general obligation bonds and other voter-approved indebtedness, such as tax overrides. The paramedics' property tax override, as, quote, other indebtedness, unquote, has been set by the City Council and levied by the County Auditor Controller's Office since fiscal year 1978-79. In order to maintain and pay for the paramedic emergency medical care services, it is necessary to continue to generate revenue through the use of the tax override on the taxable property within the city of Garden Grove. The tax override, as approved by the City Council, is 6 cents or $0.060 per $100 of assessed valuation. This will raise approximately $5.8 million that is required to provide the city's paramedic services to the citizens of Garden Grove. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt the attached ordinance authorizing property tax override of 6 cents per $100 of full assessed value, specifically for the 2011-12 fiscal year paramedic program. This concludes our staff report, and I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Yes. I thought we did this last year, so are you saying that every year we have to do this again?
Yeah, it's just an annual approval every year. Last
Okay.
year, it was adjusted, but for now, it's just routine
Okay.
annual approval.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll
Yeah,
entertain.
well, not a question, just a statement. For the record, last year I did not vote for this tax increase, but as the procedure to approve the approved rate increase last year already, I will be voting for this year's.
Mr. Mayor, I'll need to read the title when you're ready to make a
Okay.
motion.
We're ready.
Okay. It's ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove establishing the amount of money for paramedic services that must be raised by an ad valorem tax override and the setting of the tax rate of said override.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion, second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, next.
That's ordinance for second reading. That's ordinance number 2793, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending Section 1.04.090 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code to clarify that violations of state law constitute a nuisance.
Any questions for staff?
Move second reading.
Second.
Okay, a motion, second, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, matters. I do have a couple of nominations for the Planning Commission. Gary Lazenby and Mike Silva.
Second.
I have a motion.
I move.
Yeah, motion and a second. Okay, call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
And for the Neighborhood Improvement Team, Beulah Miller, I nominate.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. There
Motion
are,
received, 5 yes votes.
thank you. There are a couple of vacancies on Main Street, but the people that submitted don't meet the requirements. They either don't live there or don't own a business or operate a business. So we still do have a couple of vacancies on the Main Street. I walked it a few months ago to try and solicit people, and they almost threw rocks at me, so. So anyway, hopefully, we can look at some of the other people that might be interested. Maybe we can rekindle things. Okay, I think that's everything that I have. So, Mr. Broadwater?
Okay, well, we're going to have closed session items to go into,
Yes.
but I'm reading about 300 units being built on the Crystal Cathedral property. Have they discussed anything with us or talked to us or anything?
I've only heard that they've had maybe one inquiry with a planning staff, and I'm not sure if it was much of a meeting or a disclosure. So I know very little about what the communication they've had with the city.
Well, I'm very dubious about putting 300 units on that property. I think somebody ought to at least call us and talk to us about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a massive procedure to go through for them to do it. It'd be a shame for them to shut down their bankruptcy and find out that they didn't get what they were looking for, So, okay, that's about it for me.
Ms. Nguyen?
Yes. Happy 4th of July coming up. Independence Day, always very special. Was going to court today, and I went up the escalator, and I saw a handmade quilt, 1776 to 1976, the bicentennial item. And I remember that's my first year, fully 1 year in the United States, and that was a very special year. It was very patriotic, and it's a wonderful time to become an American. So I'm very proud of that. Happy 4th of July. Hope everyone will stay safe. And if you're going away, enjoy yourself. But those of you who are here in Garden Grove, please come out and enjoy and support our businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
I have nothing to add, thanks.
Mr. Beard.
I have a couple things. One is I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. And if you haven't noticed, with the illegal fireworks notices to the public, a $1,000 fine, and the force will be out. So the upside is happy 4th of July. And the second thing is be careful out there. Use only safe and sane fireworks. And it is the start of summer, so I just want to remind people, almost as a public service announcement, to be careful out there. And with the summertime coming up, I think we need to be aware as citizens of what activities go on in our communities, be it through policing and such. I was talking to the chief of police, and there's a lot of activity around schools, vacant school sites. So as citizens, be vigilant, help our participate in community policing, let the police department know what may be going on. And graffiti is always a constant issue, and it may go up during the summertime. So be aware as citizens and help us out or help the police force out by, if you notice anything suspicious activity going on, please notify the police. And with that, one other item I want to ask about is there's a lot of activity, obviously, on the freeways, the 22 and the 605, 405, all that conversion. Maybe we can get a some report on that in a future meeting, just to inform people what's going on. I know it's another public entities that are doing that, but I think it would be good to get just an update, because I know it has some impact on our surrounding areas, and especially West Garden Grove. But a lot of Garden Grove residents travel through the 22, so it would be helpful just as an informational item at a future council meeting to let us know what's going on. And again, happy 4th of July to everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody have a safe and sane 4th, and if you're going to have the illegal fireworks, have your checkbook ready, because if you light them, we'll write them. So have a good time, and adjourn the meeting until the next whatever date.
We have a closed session.
Announce the closed session?
Oh,
Yeah, we have.
okay. Yeah, we are going into a closed session item.
As noted on the agenda, item 10A is a conference regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B, and that one has to do with a threat of litigation that was received by the city from Robert Martinez at the April 21, 2011 Planning Commission meeting with regard to the city's proposed medical marijuana regulations, and second is conference with real property negotiators regarding 13650 South Harbor Boulevard, Garden Grove, regarding price and direction for potential acquisition of the property.
Okay, thank you. And if there's any reportable action, we'll return.